Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss the 2016 version of The Jungle Book, starring Neil Sethi, Bill Murray, Ben Kingsley, Idris Elba, Lupita Nyong'o, Scarlett Johansson, Giancarlo Esposito, and Christopher Walken, directed by Jon Favreau. Now, I remember going to theaters for this thing, being pretty impressed with this, but is it going to remain the same after seeing other movies that were live action, like Beauty and the Beast versus Cruella de Vil, Aladdin, all those other ones that I've reviewed for the show before? Well, let's get into the movie and we'll find out. We start with Mowgli the man cub, played by Neil Sethi, as a 10-year-old as he races against his wolf siblings as well as Bagheera the panther, voiced by Ben Kingsley, as he catches the audience up about Mowgli's origin story from the animated movie, as director Jon Favreau makes a smart choice by not telling the origin story again of how Mowgli got to the Wolf Clan, because this movie is an hour and 46 minutes long, and Bagheera catches Mowgli as he watches over the man cub, but instead we get a narration by Bagheera, which, and it works so much more than the original in my opinion. And Mowgli goes back home, and Raksha, the wolf, voiced by Lupita Nyong'o, Akela the wolf, voiced by Giancarlo Esposito, and their small pup Gray, as well as some other ones. And the CGI on the animals was very convincing as time goes by, and all various animals go to an area where there's water to drink out of, until Shere Khan the tiger, voiced by Idris Elba, coming in and as he hates man, like in the animated movie, as he hides behind the Wolf Clan. And the cinematography in this is absolutely tremendous, and this is the best looking of the live action Disney films. Forget about The Lion King that Jon Favreau eventually directed later in his directing career, but not as successful as this movie in my opinion. Excuse me. The Wolf Clan have a meeting about the threat Shere Khan gave the wolves while it's raining, and Mowgli says he's leaving and doesn't want anyone to get hurt because of him, as Mowgli is not safe in the jungle. But Bagheera helps take Mowgli to the man village, and they start on their adventure to the man village, and Mowgli seems more accepting this time at first than in the animated film, as they pass the elephant military, and we don't get to know them as characters like we did in that cartoon, as Mowgli and Bagheera get attacked by Shere Khan, and the actors do a fantastic job with their characters in my opinion, and I honestly thought Bagheera was dead at this point. But he'll come back later in the movie while Shere Khan goes after him, and Mowgli hides by jumping on the buffaloes and gets away from Shere Khan, which was clever from Mowgli, and I like the sequence as it works quite well. Raksha and Gray are worried and miss Mowgli too much until Shere Khan comes in and chats briefly with Akela until Shere Khan kills Akela dead, while Mowgli wakes up and gets on this river and makes himself a boat of some kind and tries to get some food until some cat-like creatures take his food away, and the movie works on its own in my opinion. Mowgli encounters Kaa the snake as a female this time and voiced by Scarlett Johansson, which was a good choice by Mr. Favreau, as she tells where Mowgli came from as his parents were killed by Shere Khan, and Mowgli survived, and so we get Bagheera rescuing him a different way from the well, not Bagheera, but we get Baloo rescuing him from a different way from the animated film, as Kaa says, "Trust in me," and almost eats him, and her character is intense, as is this scene until Baloo the bear, voiced by Bill Murray, saves his life, and Baloo saves Mowgli's life, as he wakes up and Baloo asks Mowgli if he can climb, as he wants payback from saving Mowgli's life, as Baloo asks Mowgli to climb up a rock to get some honey from the bees, and Mowgli is clever by making up some tricks on his sleeves to climb up the rock to grab the honey, as he gets stung by some bees and a couple of other animals distract Baloo, while Mowgli is successful getting the honey down, as Baloo eats the honey, and I really like Bill Murray as the voice of Baloo, as he works in this role. Mowgli tells Baloo about a tiger going after Mowgli, as he doesn't bring up Shere Khan by name. He'll learn about it later in the movie, and it works tremendously. Baloo sings the song The Bare Necessities, as Mowgli has never heard a song before in his life, as Baloo takes Mowgli to the man village briefly to show him what it's like, and Baloo talks Mowgli out of going to the man village, as Baloo wants Mowgli to stay with Baloo. While Gray shows Raksha the pups are hanging out with Shere Khan, and when Raksha tells her to come back to their cave, and Shere Khan almost kills one but lets it go anyways, which is a sad peril scene. And Raksha asks why does he want Mowgli dead as he's gone, and Shere Khan is a much more menacing villain than in the animated films. As next day comes, as Mowgli helps Baloo get some more honey, and Mowgli acts like a bear for a little bit as Mowgli and Baloo swim together, and the cinematography in this scene is absolutely gorgeous. Mowgli and Baloo are getting countered by Bagheera, and Mowgli wants to stay with Baloo in his cave as she shows Bagheera the cave, and Bagheera tells Mowgli he has to leave the jungle to get to the man village, while Baloo tells them both let's sleep it off, and they do what while Mowgli hears the elephants and does one of his tricks to save the young elephant from a hole he gets stuck in, while Bagheera and Baloo watch him successfully saving the young elephant. And Mowgli is clever, and I'll give the actor Neil Sethi credit for creating his own Mowgli, while Ben Kingsley does a good job as usual as the voice of Bagheera, and he tells Baloo to get the man cub to the man village by making a hard choice, for example getting rid of him, which is a heartbreaking scene after Baloo hears about Shere Khan going after him and the death of Akela, and tells him he has to go to the man village. And getting the young elephant out of the hole is a clever scene, and I'm really liking this movie quite a bit. Mowgli climbs a tree and is encountered by some monkeys as they mock him and take him to King Louie the Tarantula, voiced by Christopher Walken, while Bagheera and Baloo climb a rock to get to King Louie. As we learned earlier, Baloo is afraid of heights, and Bagheera tells Baloo to only look at Bagheera in order to save his own life. As I never knew panthers could climb on sharp rocks, as it's an amazing fact I learned from the internet while viewing this movie for the show, worth a Google in my opinion. Meanwhile, King Louie wants to walk and talk like Mowgli with the song as Bagheera and Baloo get to the top of the rock, while King Louie wants Mowgli's red flower, and what that means is make fire. And Mowgli doesn't have that skill, and I think I like the actor who voices King Louie's version of that song in the animated film better than the way Christopher Walken sings it, in my opinion. Baloo comes in hearing about King Louie as a king of the apes, and he wants to be in his presence, while Baloo distracts King Louie as Bagheera sneaks Mowgli out, and they let Mowgli escape while Bagheera and Baloo fight off against the monkey/apes. And King Louie gets to Mowgli quicker than I thought, as King Louie tells Mowgli Shere Khan killed Akela, and Mowgli is led to believe he's lying to him. And King Louie catches Mowgli and breaks down his own castle, well, barely, breaks down his own castle as Mowgli gets to the trees, and Bagheera and Baloo thought Mowgli was dead, but is still alive. And I like this action sequence, and Bagheera tells Mowgli Akela is dead as he runs back to the Wolf Clan, and Mowgli wants to face Shere Khan by saying he's not afraid of him, and he gets to the man village and steals some fire, but he goes back to the wolves as well as Shere Khan to face him with the fire, and I'm having rather a decent time, as so far this is a solid movie in my opinion. Mowgli gets there as the animals are afraid of Mowgli at first because of what he's capable of doing to the jungle, as he tells Shere Khan nobody should be afraid of him, and Shere Khan approaches Mowgli and Bagheera, and Baloo arrive to the scene as Shere Khan tells him to use the fire as he throws the fire in the water, and say the wolf line that was said in the beginning of the movie as Shere Khan fights Baloo, and unfortunately Baloo gets knocked out briefly as the Wolf Clan fights Shere Khan, and Bagheera tells Mowgli to fight like a man and fights Shere Khan to reach Mowgli, but knocks Bagheera out and briefly Shere Khan, and as Shere Khan fights the animals and gets to Mowgli as they climb on a tree, and Shere Khan gets closer and closer to Mowgli as the branches of the trees break and Shere Khan dies from the fire, which was an epic final action sequence, as Mowgli bows to the elephants as well as accept Mowgli as one of their own, and put out the fire as Bagheera and Baloo get up and stay in the jungle along with Mowgli and live the rest of their lives in the jungle because it's their home. And I like this twist compared to the animated film where the Mowgli goes to the man village in that film. And here he stays a happy life in the jungle after killing Shere Khan with fire. And I like that as a twist, and the climax was pretty spectacular, as was this whole movie, and I'll explain why in a rating. I'll give this movie a 8.7 out of 10. Director Jon Favreau does a great job in making a twist into the story, while the actors do a fantastic job with their characters. And the cinematography in this movie is absolutely tremendous, and this is the best live-action Disney film. Forget about The Lion King, in which, after the success of this movie, Jon Favreau ended up directing, as this is a much better movie than that, as well as Maleficent, Aladdin, and Pinocchio, which I barely paid attention to. And again, best live-action Disney film yet to date, as it improves over the animated original as well as the sequel from 2003, and the CGI animals are so much better looking here than in The Lion King that Jon Favreau, like I said, directed, as this is a much better movie than that thing in my opinion. This movie works on its own, as its visuals are spectacular, and there were times the movie was a little intense for a PG-rated movie, and this is a solid recommendation, as this is a better live-action version than, say, The Lion King, Maleficent, Aladdin, Cruella de Vil, Mulan, and Pinocchio, which I didn't review, but I saw part of it and barely paid attention to it, and my attention was half on it, as this works the best in my opinion. So yeah, solid recommendation for this movie. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for this Jungle Book retrospective, and until we get another sequel, there's rumors that's going around. Before the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities.